Dreams are scars from a past life that ache when you're not living your truth. Don Miguel Ruiz. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. You've probably felt it. That strange sense, like you're not really living your life. You're moving, doing, trying, but somewhere deep inside, there's a silence, a void, a quiet ache you've been carrying for as long as you can remember. And no matter how much you achieve, no matter how much you work on yourself, something always feels off, like a forgotten name on the tip of your tongue, like a place you've never been to, but somehow miss, like a voice calling from far away, one you keep ignoring, though it never really stops. They told you to dream big, but what if your dreams aren't goals? What if they're memories? What if your deepest longings are echoes, remnants of something you already lived, but never finished? What if that fire inside isn't ambition, but recognition? You see, most people chase dreams like there's something to create. But maybe your dreams aren't your invention. Maybe they're your return. This isn't some poetic metaphor. This is about something real, measurable, recurring, too consistent to be coincidence. Children who recall names, cities, lives they've never known. People who wake up one day with an overwhelming urge to do something they've never done. And yet, they're brilliant at it from day one. Stories of prodigies, savants, visionaries, who just knew. You weren't born empty. You were born with a blueprint. And every time you feel called towards something impossible, music, healing, flight, invention, you're not imagining it. You're remembering. The problem is, we've been taught to dismiss the whisper, to silence the pull, to label it fantasy, when in truth, it's the most honest part of us. That's why you feel lost. That's why you keep coming back to the same frustration, no matter how much you read, meditate, journal, or try to fix yourself, because you were never broken. You were disconnected, and now it's starting to come back, piece by piece. The images, the patterns, the urges, the pain that makes no sense, and the gifts you can't explain. The question isn't whether it's real. The question is whether you're ready to listen, because your dreams aren't dreams. They are memory. They are truth. They are you before the world made you forget. Most people spend their entire lives chasing something they can't name. They work, strive, achieve, and still feel empty. And when that emptiness becomes unbearable, they go looking for answers. Books, therapy, courses, another affirmation, another trick to finally feel whole. But nothing changes, or worse, it gets heavier. Because the system was never designed to help you remember who you are. It was designed to make you forget. What if I told you you've been doing everything right, but the framework itself is wrong? What if healing doesn't come from changing your thoughts, but from retrieving what was buried underneath them? What if the pain you keep running from is not a sign of damage, but the doorway back to your origin? Your dreams didn't appear out of nowhere. They're not random. They're not fantasies. They're fragments, pieces of an identity you lived before this life. They echo because they're real, and the more you ignore them, the louder the dissonance inside you grows. This isn't just theory. There's documented science behind it. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist and researcher, collected thousands of verified cases where children recalled accurate details from lives they couldn't have possibly known. Names, places, family members, even causes of death, all later confirmed. These weren't dreams. These were memories. And it doesn't stop with children. Many of the world's greatest minds reported feeling like their path was already chosen. Nikola Tesla spoke of receiving images and concepts fully formed. Mozart played full symphonies by the age of 5, and thousands of ordinary people have felt drawn to things they've never studied, yet excel in instinctively, as if something ancient was moving through them. You've felt it too, that pull toward music, toward teaching, toward healing, toward building something that doesn't exist yet. The reason it won't go away is because it's not optional. It's your compass, your real map, and no amount of logic will silence a soul that remembers. So if this resonates, don't ignore it. If you feel like something in these words just clicked into place, subscribe to this channel. Algorithms don't show content like this easily, but if you engage, more people like you will see it. People who are ready to stop pretending, ready to remember. And if you want to go deeper, join the Telegram. That's where we speak raw, without edits, without masks. And one more thing, if you recognize yourself in this, write in the comments. I no longer run from my pain. Let's see how many here are finally ready for truth. From the moment you were born, the world began shaping you into something else, not out of malice, but out of fear. Parents, teachers, society, they taught you how to be accepted, how to be good, how to survive. But in doing so, they trained you to betray something sacred. Your inner knowing, that raw, instinctive pull toward what truly matters, that quiet voice that whispered your direction, long before you knew how to explain it. And slowly, it was replaced with expectations, with rules, with guilt for wanting something different. You were told that dreams are fantasies, that only a few special people get to live them, that you must be realistic, logical, obedient. So you adapted. You smiled when you were supposed to. You performed. You succeeded. But inside, you shrank. The dream didn't die. It just went underground. And the more you ignored it, the more it disguised itself as anxiety, numbness, exhaustion. Not because you failed, but because your soul was suffocating under a life that never belonged to you. Most therapy doesn't touch this. Most advice doesn't touch this. Because it's not about coping better, it's about waking up from the coma of who you were trained to be. And that process isn't pretty, it's not inspiring, it's painful. Because to reclaim your dream, you have to confront every lie that told you it wasn't possible. Every time you were shamed for wanting too much. Every time you were praised for shrinking yourself to fit. And here's the truth most psychologists won't tell you. Not every symptom is a disorder. Sometimes the breakdown is the breakthrough. Sometimes the panic isn't dysfunction. It's a soul screaming for realignment. Because what looks like depression is often disconnection. What looks like laziness is often self-protection. You didn't give up. You got tired of betraying your essence. And now that essence is starting to push through again. You feel it in the restlessness, in the pull towards something unknown, in the grief that makes no sense. You're not broken. You're remembering. And remembering is messy. It's terrifying. It threatens the whole structure you've built. But it's the only way back to what's real. Your dream is not big. It's not too much. It's yours, and it's sacred. And the fact that it still haunts you after all these years means it's still alive, waiting, quietly, not to be achieved, but to be reclaimed. This is not about belief. It's about data, repetition, evidence. Thousands of cases around the world where children, without hypnosis or suggestion, recalled specific, detailed memories of lives they had never lived. Names, towns, causes of death, relatives, languages, all later verified. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia, spent decades documenting these cases, not one or two, but over 2,000. That's not speculation. That's a pattern. One we've been trained to dismiss because it doesn't fit the approved narrative of what a human is. But the soul is not limited to this lifetime. And the subconscious is not just a storehouse of traumas, it's a map, a storage of symbols, patterns, unfinished stories. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, the space where archetypes live. But what few people understand is this. Some of your dreams are not projections. They're fragments, memory shards, trying to find their way back to you. Why do some children show mastery in music, mathematics, or languages without any training? Why do some people have irrational phobias with no clear origin, only to later discover details that match a previous life's death? Why do so many of us feel an unexplainable pull toward a time, a culture, a mission that logically shouldn't matter to us? Because memory doesn't only live in the brain, it lives in the body, in the nervous system, in the psyche, in the energy field. The moment you begin doing what your soul remembers, the body feels it. Calm, clarity, resonance. That moment when something inside you exhales, even if your mind doesn't yet understand. And this changes everything. It means you're not lost, you're displaced, you're out of sync with your original coordinates. And your dreams, the ones you can't shake, the ones that keep returning, they are signals, they are breadcrumbs, they are attempts from the deeper parts of you to reorient your path. This is why logical goal setting often fails. It's built on surface desires, not core memory. You set goals you think you should want, but your soul doesn't care about that. It's trying to complete something much older, something meaningful, something that might never make sense to others, but that makes you feel alive in a way nothing else can. And the deeper truth? You already know what it is. You've always known. You've just been taught to forget. You can't think your way into remembering. This is not about analysis. It's about contact. Real, honest contact with what's already inside you. That's why most people stay stuck. They keep looking outside, hoping someone will hand them clarity. But clarity comes from confrontation. With yourself. With your past. With the signals that never stop trying to reach you. And for that, you don't need more information. You need integration. Here are 5 practices to begin that process. Use them not to discover your purpose, but to remember what you never truly lost. First, the pain compass. Think back to the moments in your life that hurt the most. Not just emotionally, but existentially. The times when something in you cracked, and part of you screamed that it was wrong, not because it was unfair, but because it disconnected you from something sacred. Those moments hold the map. Your greatest pain often sits right next to your original direction, not because you're meant to suffer, but because trauma hides your most important truths. Start writing about the events that still sting, and ask, what part of me was silenced in that moment? Second, the voice of the first self. Take a blank page. At the top, write, I am the one you used to be. And this is what I need you to remember. Now write freely, without filtering, for 20 minutes. Let the words come through as if you are channeling another version of yourself. Older, deeper, maybe even ancient. Don't judge. Don't try to make sense of it. Just write. You'll be shocked at what comes out. Memories in metaphor. Desires you've never said aloud. Clues. Third, somatic tracing. Sit in silence and scan your body slowly. Ask, where does my dream live? You'll feel something. A tightness in the chest. A flutter in the gut. A weight behind the eyes. Stay with that sensation and breathe into it. Then ask, what does this part of me want to say? Often memory doesn't come as words, it comes as sensations, symbols, images. This is how the body speaks the language of the soul. Fourth, childhood retrieval. Before the world taught you to shrink, what did you long for? Go back to your earliest memories and find the first time you felt truly alive. What were you doing? What made time disappear? What dream did you have before someone laughed at it? That version of you wasn't wrong. They were raw, and raw is real. That child still lives in you, waiting to be trusted again. Fifth, dream analysis. Keep a notebook by your bed. Every morning, write down anything you remember from your dreams, even fragments. Over time, patterns will emerge, recurring themes, places, people. Many of these are not fantasy. They are attempts by the subconscious to reconnect you with your unintegrated story. Your task is not to interpret them perfectly, but to notice, to listen, to honor. You don't need to know everything right now. You just need to begin. These practices are not about becoming someone new. They're about remembering who you were before you were told to forget. The moment you begin to follow the memory, not the goal, not the fantasy, but the real thread that has always pulled at you, something shifts. Not immediately, not dramatically, but undeniably. At first, it can feel like loss, like you're shedding layers you spent years building. People might not recognize you anymore. You might stop recognizing yourself. Old identities begin to fall apart. The roles that once gave you structure, the achiever, the caretaker, the fighter, the pleaser, no longer fit. It can feel disorienting, but it's not destruction, it's alignment. The collapse of who you were trained to be is necessary for the emergence of who you've always been. That's the paradox no one tells you about healing. It doesn't always feel good. It often feels like death, the death of false stories, masks, survival patterns. And yet, beneath that collapse, something begins to breathe, something ancient, familiar, solid. For the first time in years, maybe in this lifetime, you feel like you're not pretending, not performing. You're just present, still afraid, still uncertain, but rooted. There's a kind of power in that presence that doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to prove. It just is. Following your memory doesn't make life easier. It makes it real. You might lose comfort, but you gain clarity. You might face resistance, but you stop betraying yourself. You might outgrow relationships, jobs, beliefs, but you start growing into truth. The kind of truth that doesn't change with trends. It lives outside of time, because it was never about, what should I do with my life? It was always about, what part of me needs to be remembered so I can live fully right now? And yes, you'll still feel fear. Fear doesn't disappear when you're aligned. It just stops controlling you. Because the fear of staying stuck becomes greater than the fear of change. And in that space, you begin to make choices that are not driven by approval, safety, or ego, but by resonance. You recognize what feels like home, even if you've never been there before. You recognize people who feel like mirrors, even if you just met them, because something inside you is awake now, and it sees. This is also when you start feeling waves of grief, not because you're broken, but because you're finally honest. You mourn the years you spent chasing things that weren't yours. You grieve the version of you that had to survive by hiding. And that grief is sacred. It's a rite of passage. Every tear is a goodbye to the sleepwalking. Every breath is a return. And with that return comes a different kind of clarity. Not the kind that tells you exactly what to do every day, but the kind that lets you move forward without lying to yourself. You stop seeking permission. You stop explaining your path. You stop outsourcing your truth to experts, not because you're arrogant, but because you've remembered the frequency of your own voice. You become quiet inside, but not numb, not checked out, present, watchful, alive. You start doing things that make no logical sense, but feel completely right. You pursue the art, the medicine, the teaching, the space-making, the creating, because it's not about the outcome anymore. It's about obedience to that memory, to the thread that never let go, even when you tried to. That's when you realize this was never about success, never about fixing yourself. It was about remembering what already lived inside you and finding the courage to let it move through you, no matter what it costs. Because what you gain is yourself. Your dream, whatever it is, matters. It doesn't matter if it came from a past life, a childhood memory, or a silent longing you've never spoken aloud. The fact that it lives in you makes it sacred, because real dreams are never random. They don't arrive by accident. They're not just emotional impulses or fantasies. They're frequencies, codes, messages, anchors, and they carry something far more powerful than you've ever been told. They carry the key to your expansion, your impact, your actualization. We've been trained to treat dreams like accessories, things that are nice to have if we're lucky. But the truth is, your dream is not optional. It's essential. It is a source of life force, a map, a current of energy that can move through you, and in doing so, transform everything around you. One person's dream, honored and lived fully, can shift entire timelines for themselves, their families, their communities, even the world. Think of the ripple effect. One artist who follows their creative vision can heal the pain of millions through a single piece of work. One healer who trusts their gift can create space for others to break cycles that have lasted generations. One teacher, one writer, one thinker, following something that made no sense on paper but made perfect sense to their soul, can change the way people see life forever. And sometimes it starts with a dream so small, so quiet, you almost dismiss it. Don't, because there are no insignificant dreams. Every dream carries the potential to unlock something vast. You never know whose life your dream might touch. You never know who's waiting for what only you can bring into this world. And if you still doubt it, look at those who were told their dreams were impossible. Oprah Winfrey was born into poverty, abused as a child, and told she'd never belong on television. She turned that pain into presence and used her voice to change the way the world talks about healing, growth, and truth. Rowling was a single mother on welfare, rejected by publisher after publisher. Her dream of a story about a boy with a scar was seen as too strange, too long, too risky. Today, those stories have touched hundreds of millions of people. Elon Musk was laughed at for imagining electric cars, reusable rockets, and global satellite internet. But he followed the impossible, not because it was smart, but because it pulled him. Jim Carrey grew up homeless, living in a van with his family. He believed in his dreams so deeply that he wrote himself a check for $10 million and dated it years in the future. He carried it with him, and he manifested that exact amount for one of his first big movie roles. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. Imagine that. The man who would go on to shape the imagination of generations. None of them had a realistic path. None of their dreams were seen as achievable, but they moved anyway. They trusted the inner pull. They listened to something bigger than fear. And because of that, their dreams didn't just change their lives, they changed ours. So don't you dare dismiss yours. Your dream is not a luxury, it's a responsibility. It is the thread that will lead you home to yourself. It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be public, but it does have to be lived. Even if no one understands at first, even if it scares you, especially if it scares you. Because it's not just about your success, it's about unlocking a version of you that the world hasn't met yet, but deeply needs. Trust it, follow it, and protect it with your life. Because that dream, it's your treasure. The one thing that, if honored, can reveal your real power. And once you touch that, you stop asking for permission. You start moving like someone who knows why they're here. And if these words found something in you, if something opened while listening, don't leave that unspoken. Subscribe to the channel, so more people who are ready to awaken their own dreams can find this space. Join the Telegram. That's where we go deeper. No filters, no noise, just truth. And if you felt yourself in this message, if you remembered something you didn't know you were missing, write in the comments, "I accept my dream." Let's see who here is ready to protect the fire within. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of something only your soul could have planned.